Now we're starting to talk about spring, which is very exciting that winter is winding down. And today we're talking about watering your plants. It may seem like a simple concept, but not all plants are created equal and not all of them love water. Joining us with the do's and don'ts of watering is Master Gardener, the Green Thumb Guru, Ed Sourdiffe. Ed, nice to have you here.
Nice to be here.
Now watering our plants, we think we just go down the line with all the plants in our house and water them. That's not the case.
No, all plants are different. They come from different areas of the world. We're talking about your indoor house plants, tropical plants mostly. So sometimes it's actually good to get a good book like the one I have over there that gives you little details on where the plants are from, what they like for fertilizing, sun and water. It's always good to have a little reference, or of course online you can look it up. But one of the principal things with your tropical plants is they don't like cold water from the tap. They're from the tropics, so they actually like a little bit lukewarm water or maybe house temperature tepid water. Also, if you live in the cities and you have city water, a lot of times they put chlorine mostly in the water and you can smell it. It's best to actually get rid of those chemicals in the water, and the easy way to do that is pour like a jug full of water like that the night before.
Right in
and,
here?
Yeah, leave it, and then take the cap off overnight, and then all the gases will come out, like the chlorines and any other impurities like that will come out of it, and you'll have nice water for watering.
And rule of thumb, you probably always want to use room temperature or lukewarm water. I always wonder that. I just don't want to put any temperature in there to water my plants.
Yeah, they wouldn't like cold. I mean, it's like if we always said, Ashley, you can only have a cold shower from now on.
I would be the smelliest person in the world. I wouldn't shower.
There you go.
Now, some plants don't need any water. Is that right?
Well, no, they do need water, but these are called air plants, and that's good that you said that because people say, oh, they're air plants. They live on the air. They're tillandsias, but they actually do live in the trees, but then they get the rain showers coming through and stuff. So if you actually went to the Biggie or something, you bought some air plants like that, the good rule of thumb with them is at least soak them, actually put them in a pot of water, submerge them for 2 hours a week, and then take them out, shake them out, and then you can put them back, and they'll actually have absorbed enough water to go on with that. So so they're air plants, but they do want water too.
Okay, so you still want to make sure you water them. Now you have two different plants here. What are these?
This is a snowflake bush here, and then in front I have a little cerisa. Now these guys, most plants actually just want to be have their soil moist, not sodden, not soaking. So I can actually show you a good way to test that. This one actually needs a little water. If you feel the soil,
oh, it's very dry.
It's very dry, and you can actually, if you look closely, I know this plant, so I know it's actually starting to limp, get a little wimpy.
Yeah, you can see it's wilting a little.
Yeah, it's called a lock of tuger. There's no enough water in there, so it's actually deflating a little. Now this plant here, if you feel the soil, you'll feel it's actually nice and moist, so you would know not to water that, leave that one alone. So really your fingers are your best friend when it comes to watering.
Perfect. Now tell us about this little tree here.
The jabotica here is actually a good example of some things that are forgiving. This plant actually was missed for watering. No one watered it for a while. It actually went dormant. It lost all its leaves. You would think it would have been dead. It wouldn't come back, but we left it a be, and it actually, these are all brand new leaves, and there's still new ones little leafing out there. Some plants are forgiving like that. These two, like the snowflake and the ceria, are not. Myrtles are not. If you let them dry out once, they're gone. You're never going to have them back again.
So this came back to life. So if you're not sure if it has another life, maybe just give it a chance and see if it'll come back.
Yeah, and like I've said before, you can always just take your fingernail and scrape a little bit of the bark, and if you see green under the bark, you'll know the plant's still alive, and so it might come back too.
Okay. Now something like this is a moss, right?
Yeah, I had brought this on earlier. This is a frosted fern, they call it. It's a type of moss. Actually, they come, usually some plants from the store will come in these little decorative envelopes or something. Yep. Now, if you had another plant in here, if you actually feel this one, there's actually water in there.
This is soaking in water.
Yeah, so if you had a poinsettia, a primrose, or anything else from the store, that would actually kill that plant. The moss actually is one of the few plants that like to be in water, so you can actually leave this in some of the ferns. So anytime you get an ornamental plant, make sure that you're not just waterlogging it and it would die.
Right, this is an exception, but
yeah,
you always don't want to have it sitting in water.
Yes, that's an exception to the rule.
Okay.
Begonia up front here. Begonias are notorious for getting root rot, so you actually want to let that guy dry out a little bit too, so that it'll get some air around the roots. It'll be a little bit better. It'll be better for it than leaving it always dry. So sometimes there's always a little trick with a plant. And if you look it up, you'll be able to find out what that trick is. Another thing is like succulents. Like this is a jade plant. Everybody's seen these. A succulent, you can usually tell they have big, thick leaves, and that's actually for storing water. Right. So this guy, I believe he comes from South Africa. and it's a dry climate there, so you would want to let him dry out a lot in between to keep his roots healthy, because he's got all storage in here. He doesn't want to have any extra water.
You still want to water it, but not as much as others. Now, is that something that you would spritz, like spray it, or still water the root?
I would spray it to clean off the leaves and keep it nice and dust-free, but I would still do the thing with touching the soil, but this time I'd let it go a little bit drier than I would anything over here.
Okay. Now, moving on down the line.
Okay, moving on down the line. This is just a flowering maple. You can see what's left here of one of the flowers here. What I have here is this one likes to stay moist too, but I put it in a decorative pot here. Now, some people will put them in decorative pots. Make sure your pots all have drainage holes, because if you don't, they'll drown the plant. So very important for all the plants is to have a drainage hole. Now, if and if you put a plant like this into a decorative pot, make sure that either has a drainage hole, or you actually will be careful not to let the water build up in there, because the plant will drown in that also.
So make sure you know your plants. Now, we're out of time, Ed, but we want to let everyone know about the Spring Gardening Symposium that's coming up.
Yes, there's actually 3 of them. There's one that's coming up in Deerfield, and there's one in Holyoke, and there's also one in the Berkshires. You can find it on our website, wmmga.org. And actually, I'll be instructing at 2 of them. I'll be doing the Holyoke High School one. I'll be doing heirloom plants and vegetables. Really, it's actually very interesting. And I'll actually doing water gardens in the Berkshires.
So people can meet Ed Sourdiffe and get your autograph. Well, Ed, that's wonderful. So make sure you know your plants so you know how much water they need to be happy. Thanks, Ed. Nice to have you here. All this talk about plants and watering our plants makes us excited for spring. And actually, the temperatures outside today were a little bit warmer than they have been. So let's check in